A hall fills with applause. Spotlights flood the stage. As a man steps forward, his voice steady, his gestures deliberate. The crowd leans in, drawn not just to what he says, but to how he owns the space around him. A few feet away, another man sits quietly, hands folded, eyes lowered. He had the sharper idea, the clearer vision, the real solution. Yet no one looks his way. In that instant, the world exposes an old truth. Attention doesn't follow merit, it follows power. Why do some voices rule a room, while others fade into silence? Why do some people command presence before they even speak, while others spend their lives waiting to be seen? The answer is simple, but difficult to accept. The world doesn't reward goodness, it rewards gravity, the invisible force that pulls attention toward those who claim it. Power is never given freely, it's recognized, claimed, and reinforced. Every social structure, from offices to relationships, runs on silent calculations. Who controls the pace? Who speaks with confidence? Who defines the moment in their own language? The strong don't always fight. Sometimes they simply define reality, so convincingly that everyone else adapts to it. The gentle are often the first to be overlooked. They play fair, stay patient, and hope recognition will come naturally. But the world doesn't see patience as virtue, it sees it as passivity. Those who hesitate become invisible. And in a world built on perception, invisibility is a slow kind of erasure. It may feel unfair, but that truth is the first step toward awakening. Approval is not the path to power. Look closer at how attention works. It's never random. It follows those who set the frame, the ones who decide what matters. Every meeting, every conversation, every negotiation is a quiet battle of perception. If you don't define the scene, you get trapped inside someone else's version of it. And once that happens, your relevance begins to shrink until it almost disappears. Power, at its core, is architectural. It's built on how you arrange the light, what you illuminate, and what you leave in shadow. The architects of light decide who stands in the glow and who fades into the edges. The weak wait for permission to be seen. The powerful design the stage itself. This isn't a call to cruelty. It's a call to awareness, to understand that modern survival is no longer physical, it's psychological. The wars we fight now happen in conversations, in glances, in silence online. The battlefield is attention, and perception is the weapon. Those who shape it rule, without ever lifting a sword. There's a quiet hierarchy in every room. Some people speak, and the world rearranges itself around their words. Others speak and their voices dissolve. The difference isn't intelligence or goodness, it's self-definition. The strong define reality, the weak adapt to it. The most dangerous mistake is believing truth speaks for itself. It doesn't. Someone must amplify it, embody it, make it visible, or it dies unheard. The kind-hearted often resist this idea. They believe being seen should come naturally, that authenticity alone should be enough. But authenticity without projection is like a whisper in a storm, real but unheard. You can be good and still understand power. You can be gentle and still command presence. But to do that, you must stop begging for recognition and start shaping the lens through which you're seen. Every interaction teaches the world how to treat you. Each time you shrink back to avoid conflict, you teach others that your space can be taken. Every time you wait for acknowledgement, you hand over control of the frame. You don't have to be ruthless, but you do have to be intentional, because the world, for all its beauty, still runs on dominance, not cruelty, but certainty. Influence isn't about shouting louder. It's about standing so firmly in your ground that others start to move around you. Once you grasp that, you stop chasing approval and start commanding attention. You stop waiting for doors to open and begin building your own entrances. Before you rise, you must unlearn softness, not the kind that feels, but the kind that folds. The world doesn't reward the gentle, it rewards the grounded, the aware, the ones who no longer ask for a place because they've already claimed it. Across the endless dark of space, a comet cuts through the sky, one streak of fire against infinite black. It appears once in decades, yet those few seconds of light are enough to etch its image into memory for generations. People wait years for its return, not because they expect it to stay, but because it rarely does. Its beauty doesn't come from its brightness, it comes from its absence. Human nature works the same way. The more something is seen, the less it's valued. The more predictable it becomes, the easier it is to ignore. Constant presence turns brilliance into background noise. But scarcity Scarcity turns existence into myth. Power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it vanishes. When you're always available, always responding, always seen, you teach the world that your time costs nothing. But when you step back at your peak, when your name is still echoing in their minds, you create a vacuum their thoughts rush to fill. And that silence begins to speak louder than your words ever could. Absence isn't escape, it's strategy. It's the act of withdrawing while you're still glowing, leaving behind an afterimage of strength that no one can forget. People begin to wonder, where did you go? Why did you leave? Have they lost something important? Those questions become seeds of longing, because curiosity is always the first step toward attachment. Every moment you stay silent, their imagination works for you. They build stories in your absence, they replay conversations, exaggerate details, and question what you'll do next. In that uncertainty, you begin to live inside their minds rent-free. It's not neglect, it's precision. Power operates best in contrast, presence and absence, action and stillness, speech and silence. The masters of attention understand this rhythm instinctively. Think of a musician who ends a concert with silence, leaving the audience begging for one last note. Think of a leader who disappears after victory, letting mystery guard their legend. They know the world doesn't just reward performance, it rewards restraint. If you always give, people stop reaching. If you always speak, your words lose weight. Strategic unpredictability is the next layer of scarcity. Predictability breeds comfort, and comfort kills respect. When people can map your every reaction, they stop fearing your absence and stop valuing your return. The art lies not in chaos, but in controlled variation, just enough to remind the world that you can't be anticipated. When your rhythm shifts, others must adjust theirs to follow. And that adjustment, that constant recalibration, is power. Imagine a CEO who suddenly cancels the weekly meeting everyone depends on. Instead, he sends a one-line email. Decisions will be made without discussion this time. The silence that follows is louder than any speech. Everyone prepares harder next week, not out of fear, but because uncertainty has sharpened their focus. Predictability would have dulled it. Remaining unpredictable doesn't mean being erratic or cold. It means keeping your motives layered, visible enough to spark curiosity, hidden enough to prevent control. The world should never fully map you. Once people believe they've figured you out, you've already lost leverage. Power isn't about mystery for mystery's sake. It's about keeping the map incomplete. Psychological distance works the same way. When people can reach you too easily, they start to handle you carelessly. When your time, energy, or attention feels endless, they stop valuing it. Limiting access isn't arrogance, it's discipline. It's understanding that your worth multiplies in scarcity. The balance is delicate. Too much distance and they forget you. Too little and they take you for granted. True mastery lives in that tension, where they can see you but never fully hold you. This dance between distance and reappearance creates something rare, emotional demand. When people sense they could lose your attention, they work to keep it. When they sense you can leave without warning, they listen harder when you speak. They remember the smallest details because they know they might not get another chance. Scarcity creates depth where abundance once bred boredom. Absence, mystery, distance, these aren't barriers. They're instruments of influence. They bend perception, multiply value, and make even the quietest presence impossible to ignore. When used deliberately, they turn ordinary people into enigmas the world can't stop watching. The rarest sound in power is silence, because silence makes the world listen harder. Beneath the surface of a silent ocean, a diver struggles against a web of ropes. Each thread tightens with every movement. Then, one moment of clarity. A blade flashes through the blue, cutting rope after rope. The diver doesn't panic. He moves slowly, precisely, until he's free. That's what detachment feels like. Not escape, but control. Attachment is disguised slavery. It hides behind warmth, loyalty, and belonging, but it quietly steals your autonomy. Every time you need someone's approval to feel secure, every time your peace depends on another person's reaction, you hand them a piece of your power. It feels comforting, even human, but comfort comes at a cost. When your emotions rely on external validation, you're no longer steering your own mind. Detachment isn't the absence of care, it's the mastery of it. It's knowing when to stop giving away your control. It's understanding that your worth doesn't change. based on how others treat you. The one who can walk away calmly, deliberately, without resentment, holds the real leverage. The psychology behind it is simple. Need creates dependency, and dependency invites manipulation. The more someone knows you need them, the more they learn how to pull your strings. They can withhold affection, delay attention, twist your expectations, and you, driven by fear of loss, begin negotiating your identity just to keep the peace. The mind that can't detach becomes a hostage of its own attachment. Detachment, however, reverses the equation. It doesn't mean indifference, it means balance. Think of a thermostat. No matter how hot or cold the room gets, it stays centered. You feel, but you don't drown. You love, but you don't beg. You engage, but you never lose your anchor. A detached mind moves through life like water, shifting shape, yet never losing its essence. You build it through small acts of restraint, micro-detachments that retrain your nervous system. You delay replying to a message that once demanded an instant response. You decline a favor you don't want to give, even if it risks mild disappointment. You stop oversharing plans just to feel validated. Each small refusal reminds you that your time and energy belong to you, not to the approval of others. The beauty of detachment is that it makes your presence heavier, not lighter. People feel it. They notice the quiet steadiness in your tone, the lack of desperation, the calm refusal to chase. You stop reacting to everything, and that silence unsettles those who once fed on your responses. Manipulation loses its grip, because you've stopped offering emotional currency for others to spend. But there's a warning here. Detachment is not numbness. Numbness shuts down emotion. Detachment refines it. A detached person can love deeply, yet still protect their boundaries. They can walk away without hatred, forgive without reunion, and succeed without arrogance. It's not cold-heartedness, it's clarity. You're not suppressing emotion, you're steering it. This clarity turns dependence into choice. You no longer stay because you're afraid to leave. You stay because you choose to. You no longer work to be liked. You work to be effective. You stop chasing reassurance and start moving from quiet conviction. Detachment doesn't strip away your humanity. It restores it. And something subtle happens when you master it. The world begins to treat you differently. People sense that your peace can't be bought, your attention can't be demanded, and your emotions can't be manipulated. You become an unmoving center in a world built on noise. They adjust to your calm because they can't pull you into their chaos. Every act of detachment is an act of self-respect. It's the mind reclaiming its throne from emotional dependence. It's you saying, I will feel everything, but I will be owned by nothing. Freedom begins the moment. Nothing outside you decides who you are. A chessboard sits under the dim light of an empty room. The pieces stand frozen. Kings, bishops, pawns, locked in perfect balance. Then, a single move breaks the silence, one shift that changes everything. The players are nowhere to be seen, somewhere beyond the frame. Unseen hands guide both sides. Every piece believes it's fighting for itself, yet both serve the same mind. That's what real control looks like. Invisible, deliberate, absolute. Power doesn't live in strength alone, it lives in structure. The world isn't ruled by noise, it's ruled by systems. The men who understand this don't just collect wealth, they build ecosystems around it. Money is fuel, yes, but only one of many resources. Knowledge is ammunition, alliances are shields, reputation is armor. Together they form a fortress that the unprepared can't even see. The mistake most people make is believing power is what you can see. The money in an account, the title on a business card, the number of followers on a screen. But true power hides beneath layers. Financial capital feeds social capital. Social capital builds influence. Influence shapes perception. And perception, over time, rewrites reality itself. Think of the strategist who never steps on stage, but funds the speaker who does. The world applauds the face it can see, while the mind behind the curtain writes the script. His wealth doesn't shout, it whispers through timing, favors, and direction. That's what it means to command resources, not to possess them, but to orchestrate them. Money alone can't save you in the long game. Information will. It's the quietest currency on earth, and often the most lethal. The one who knows what others fear, desire, or conceal, controls them without ever speaking. That's why you listen more than you talk. You gather before you reveal. You trade knowledge not for attention, but for position. And once you have it, you protect it like a weapon. but resources are only half the equation. The other half is perception, the invisible force that makes your presence heavier before you even arrive. People don't act on what's true, they act on what they believe is true. If you can shape that belief, you shape their decisions. A strong reputation can make people yield before you say a word. That's psychological leverage, the kind you can't buy, but can build. You build it through consistency, competence, and just enough mystery. Show reliability, but never full access. Reveal your strength, but never your limits. The goal isn't transparency, it's design. Too much exposure kills intrigue. Too much secrecy breeds distrust. The balance lies in selective revelation, like lighting a single candle in a dark room. You show enough to inspire awe, and let imagination fill the rest. Those who master perception understand that identity is architecture. You're not simply who you are, you're what others believe you are. That's not deception, it's authorship. You're writing your public myth, and in a world built on stories, the myth always wins. Then comes the art of the calculated display of power, the moment that defines how the world measures you. Power flaunted too often becomes noise. A sword waved constantly loses its edge, but power revealed with precision becomes unforgettable. Picture a dam holding back a massive river. Most days it's silent, unmoving, almost forgotten, but when it releases its force once, the entire valley remembers who controls the flow. You don't show power to impress, you show it to calibrate, to remind the world and yourself that the current runs through you. When someone questions your competence, you don't argue, you act. Once, cleanly, decisively. Let results replace explanations. When a rival assumes you're cornered, you unveil an option they never imagined, a hidden ally, a reserve of influence, a move prepared long before the challenge began. The impact doesn't come from aggression, it comes from contrast. A calculated display is both shield and signal. It redefines boundaries around you. It silences noise without raising your voice. It reminds everyone watching that while they were reacting, you were designing, and then you return to stillness. Because power that must constantly prove itself was never real to begin with. True command isn't about control over others, it's about the structure beneath you. It's the quiet knowledge that every move you make ripples through systems already set in your favor. You don't chase outcomes, you position them. You don't demand respect, you build environments where respect becomes the only logical response. In the end, reality bends toward those who plan further, see deeper, and act less, but with greater precision. Because true control isn't about showing power every day, it's about knowing exactly when the world deserves to see it. A lighthouse stands on a cliff, alone against the sea. For centuries, storms have tried to break it, waves clawing at its base, winds screaming against its walls, but it doesn't move. Ships still search for its light. Generations pass, captains change, oceans shift, yet the tower remains the same. That's what true power looks like. Not noise, not dominance, but endurance. Power matures into permanence when it stops depending on performance and becomes part of the structure itself. Most people chase moments of control. They want recognition, attention, applause. But irreplaceability doesn't come from noise. It comes from quiet necessity. From building something so essential that removing you would mean breaking the system around you. To reach that level, you must fuse every lesson that came before. Competence, scarcity, perception, and loyalty. Each becomes a pillar. Competence makes you valuable. Scarcity makes you rare. Perception makes you respected. Loyalty makes you protected. Together, they form an ecosystem, a network that feeds itself, grows itself, and shields you from collapse. You become irreplaceable, not by doing everything, but by doing what no one else can. You deliver results others only attempt. You solve problems that seem unsolvable, not with loud confidence, but with quiet precision. You build relationships that depend on your integrity, not your constant presence. Then you create systems, teams, ideas, structures that function because of your design, not because of your supervision. The world may still run on your blueprint, even when you're gone. That's permanence. It's the difference between the architect and the tenant. The tenant worries about the weather. The architect builds something that outlasts it. But there's a paradox here. To be irreplaceable, you must also be willing to be replaced. Attachment to the throne makes you fragile. When your identity is tied to a position, you become terrified of losing it. Fear clouds clarity. You start defending instead of creating. The truly powerful are always ready to rebuild from zero because their value doesn't live in titles or possessions. It lives in who they are. That mindset flips dependence completely. The world begins to need you more than you need it. People start adjusting their behavior around your steadiness. They seek your input, your judgment, your calm, not because you demand authority, but because your presence brings order. You stop chasing relevance. Relevance starts orbiting you. This is where aggression fades and serenity begins. The strongest person in the room is rarely the loudest. They don't need to prove anything. Their silence carries weight because it comes from certainty, not pride. You stop competing because you've built a lane so unique that competition becomes irrelevant. The game no longer defines you, you define the game. Irreplaceability isn't about being everywhere. It's about being essential somewhere. When you operate from deep focus, every move multiplies. Every decision carries momentum. Every word shapes perception. It's not about dominating others. It's about designing systems where your influence becomes structural. Even if you step away, the current you created keeps flowing. Think of gravity. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't fight or argue, yet everything depends on it. Planets move because of it. Oceans obey it. Existence itself leans toward it. That's what becoming irreplaceable feels like. Unseen, constant, and impossible to remove without breaking the whole. This doesn't mean perfection. It means stability. It means building such depth of competence that even your absence feels like direction. It means training others so well that they can thrive without you, but they still remember who built the foundation. True leadership doesn't cling. It releases, knowing that what was built will outlast its builder. There's a quiet peace that comes when you stop proving, stop reacting, stop needing to be noticed. You start moving like the lighthouse, steady through chaos, untouched by storms, certain of purpose. The world looks different from this place. It feels slower, clearer, lighter. Irreplaceability isn't about control anymore. It's about alignment with yourself, your craft, and the unseen structure you've created. You no longer command attention. You attract it effortlessly because you've become the constant in a world addicted to fluctuation. And when that realization finally settles, you understand something simple, something freeing. Power was never about ruling others. It was about mastering yourself so completely that the world rearranges around your steadiness.